Hello, and you are listening to Scarjo A Go-Go, the podcast where we chronicle and dissect the films of Scarlett Johansson in chronological order. I'm Luke, and this week we're talking about North.
We're here to learn, not just to yearn for our most loved celebrity. We'll watch the screen, what can we glean from her career trajectory? 'Cause she'd prefer, if you'd refer to her as Miss Johansson. Don't be a jerk to Miss Johansson. Respect her work. She starts off really small and then she grows, she grows, she grows, she grows. Let's see how far she goes. Scarjo A Go-Go.
So why dedicate a weekly podcast to Scarlett Johansson? Now, there's actually a lot of reasons that spring to mind. One, I love all things pop culture. I studied film, I've studied theatre, I've studied literature, and I have written and directed theatre. So I'm kind of interested in this field in general, and have had the opportunity through doing all these courses to really analyse things. And on my other shows, this is my third show, I tend to get a little bit silly, a little bit ribald, a little bit rambunctious, as it were. And I think this is a chance to maybe get a little bit smarter, to sew the tweed patches onto the elbows of my, I guess it's a hoodie today, and really start to dissect something and do a podcast which has a very singular focus. Now, I'm interested in film, I'm interested in performance. And obviously, I have a vested interest in Scarlett Johansson. She's a personal favourite. I really love her work. I find it very engaging to watch as a performer. And I'm very interested in her development and the choices that she's making. Now, when I put forward the idea that I was going to do this, I had friends that I thought were going to roll their eyes and go, oh, okay, you're doing this Scarlett Johansson thing because she's attractive. You're attracted to her. And yeah, I am attracted to her, of course. Why not? I will admit it. We can't lie. We can't start a podcast with lies. But I think there's a lot more to it than that. And what I really love is the idea of looking at an actor's career and following it from start to finish, and really seeing what their choices are, and looking for patterns, looking for echoes, seeing what kind of things evolve out of this process that we didn't expect. And I think that any actor would be interesting to do this with. Were it, I look at someone like Jim Carrey, for example. He's someone who enters with Ace Ventura, Pet Detective is where he makes a splash. And here's an actor that's got nothing to lose. He does this crazy, over-the-top, memorable performance. He knows it's like go big or go home time. And it's a hit. People are really intrigued. And then suddenly he's doing the same sort of character in a lot of different films, except writers are writing it for him. It's not very organic. It starts to get a bit same-ish, and then there's that phase where Jim Carrey tries to do serious roles. He does that thing about the cinema. He does Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And, some things are successful, some things are not. And then there's the sort of Jim Carrey that's kind of a little bit more desperate, who does mainstream movies like Mr. Popper's Penguins. There's the Jim Carrey that does bit parts in things like Kick-Ass 2. It's really interesting to see how all these things evolve. Why does this happen? But we're not talking about Jim Carrey. We're talking about Scarlett Johansson. And why Scarlett Johansson? Why this person? Because there's got to be more to it than me just being attracted to her, or we wouldn't get an interesting podcast. So I think she's kind of unique in a lot of ways. She's interesting because she's somebody who started off as a child. I mean, this film that we're going to talk about today, North, is from 1994. She was born in 1984. So she's about probably 9 when this movie was filmed. And there's certainly not the suggestion when you're watching this that this is somebody who's going to become an A-list actor, who's going to do so much in the future. And I think her career, is going better than it ever has. I mean, she's got 4 movies coming out in 2014, which are Captain America, Chef, Under the Skin, and Lucy with Luc Besson, which is the one that's yet to be released at the time of recording this. So she's more active than ever. She's doing very interesting choices, a lot of quirky independent films, but she's very much an A-list actress, and who knows where it'll go from here. So I want to connect the dots. I want to see, why was she cast in these early films? You know, how did one thing lead to another? And how do we piece it all together to create this complete picture of the wonderful Scarlett Johansson? Because she's got box office results that total nearly $2 billion. She's got a lot of highly rated movies on Rotten Tomatoes. She's got some really low rated movies as well. The one we're going to do today is one of the very lowest. We're talking about a 20-year career which has no sign of slowing down. So there's plenty of things in the future. We don't know where this is going to go. I mean, this is this fledgling point now where we're looking at the child. And that's kind of a metaphor for this podcast as well. This is the child, the acorn, the seed, which, you know, does it have potential? Is this going to grow into something glorious and interesting and wonderful that you want more of? Or, you know, is it a stillborn? I hope that a stillborn's not a really... No, don't put that. If you're reviewing this podcast, don't call it a stillborn. I don't think that's particularly helpful. I say that it is budding with potential. It could grow to be a beautiful tree, and I think that's what we're going to see with Scarlett Johansson here, because she makes a lot of interesting choices, and I think she's definitely worthy of study. Now, I want to, before we get into North, I want a few disclaimers here. Some just little bits and pieces that I think we need to set the ground rules of what we're doing. Now, I know she's made it pretty clear in interviews. I mean, they may have exaggerated it, but she does not like the term Scarjo. I don't think she thinks that it... well, at least it's reported that she doesn't think it means that she's taken very seriously as an actress. I mean, hey, look, J-Law has a Oscar, so, you know, I don't think it means people think any less of her, but we've got to respect her wishes. And I mean, it is a kind of silly thing to say. We don't say J-Nick for Jack Nicholson, or call George Clooney G-Clue. So during the body of the show, we will only refer to her by her correct name. But how can you not title the show Scarjo A Go-Go when it clearly rhymes? And when things rhyme, they're always far better. And a go-go derives from a French term, means an abundance of. And if there's anything this show is going to promise you, it is an abundance of Scarlett Johansson related facts, trivia, opinions, things, fluff, filler, nonsense, speculation. And, you know, speaking of her name, this is the other thing. This is a bit controversial. This is a personal thing. I often want to call her Scarlett Johansson with the soft J, because, you know, that's very Scandinavian, isn't it, to do that? It makes me feel very fancy and exotic when I do that. Like I'm so rich, I'm going to yerk it on a yet, you know? Like, that sounds kind of cool. So, I don't know, I think like the American thing is to say Johansson. I'll probably mix it up. You'll probably catch me saying both. I might not even be very consistent with it. But I think that's kind of cool. Let's just go with the flow. Let's just enjoy the word. Let's say it lots of different ways. Why don't we go like Joe Hansen, or like Johansson, Scarlett Johansson. And, you know, the other thing is we're not going to objectify her, because that's not going to get us anywhere. This isn't going to be like the Scarlett Bro Hansen show where like, hey, Scarlett Johansson, man, checking them boobies. Like, that's not what this show is going to be about. This is actually going to be a semi-serious show about analysing and being smart and enjoying and studying and like figuring shit out together. We're going to find out how all this shit clicks together. So let's not be jerks, let's not be yerks, let's not objectify the woman, let's look at her body of work. And look, to be fair as well, she's not even going to be an adult for about 12 episodes. So everybody, on your best behaviour, high brow. Let's push the brow up. I've got a brow raised. Have you got your brow raised? Are we all raising our brow? And maybe, finally, 10 minutes in, I know there's a lot of housekeeping, but we need a clean house. Can't podcast in a dirty house. Let's do this. So, I have some theories, because I'm thinking, I know she's in this film North. and I know that she's going to be a child. Now, there's another actor in this film that is also a child, which is Elijah Wood. Now, I'm thinking, what is her role here? Because I honestly don't remember. Like, is she going to be this hungry wolf who's sniffing around the perimeter of this film while pampered poodle Elijah Wood, the golden child Elijah Wood, sits on his velvet cushion, the centerpiece of this movie? Or is she someone who is just going to drift through this film like a ghost? We might not even notice her the first time. Now, that was my theory, that Scarlett Johansson often inhabits the periphery of these early films. We're talking about somebody that you might not even know that she's in some of these films. We'll mention some films and go, like Home Alone 3, for example. That's something that'll come up at some point. And you'll go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, first you might say, they made a Home Alone 3? Are you shitting me? Because Macaulay Culkin isn't even in this thing. And then you'll go, Scarlett Johansson was in that film? No, mister, you're chasing the wrong crocodile. I don't even know what that means. I'm not going to... It's weird doing this solo. I normally have a co-host, but I wanted a podcast that I could produce myself when I wanted to. So I'm not going to edit out crazy stuff like that, like about crocodiles. I think, that's a metaphor that they've got tails, you chase a tail. We're going to workshop this, okay? Now, is she drifting like a ghost in the periphery? Because you look at what's going to happen in her career a bit further down the track with some of those films that I do know. I mean, Ghost World is about outsiders. It is about characters that kind of drift through society like ghosts. And then you have a film like Lost in Translation, where she really was on the radar for the mainstream. And she drifts like a ghost through Japan. So we have this wonderful A-list actor that keeps working, that he's getting roles all the time. But is she just on the outside looking in? Like, is Scarlett Johansson our true outsider hero in these films? Now, that was the theory going into this. But then I watched North and I realized that no, actually, that's not the case. In fact, she very much surprised me with what we see in this film. Her role wasn't what I expected at all. I don't know what I thought it was going to be. Like, it's a kid's film starring kids. I thought maybe she'd be the pretty girl love interest, or maybe the kind of sister that was a bit of a mean girl that sort of thought that North was a bit of a knob. Because you look at Elijah Wood, he's the hero of this thing, but you also kind of think, he's a bit of a knob. It's that sort of Hobbit thing. It's hard to respect a Hobbit. So, I'm going to talk about North, and we're going to talk about North in quite specific terms in terms of the plot. Now, I want you to have the experience that I had while watching North, where I'm going, I know she's in here, and I'm kind of jumping at shadows. I'm waiting for her to turn up. I want you to be waiting for her to turn up too, because when she does, it's not what I expected. Now, North is a film from 1994. It's based on a novel, and it's about a child, essentially, that has parents that don't appreciate him. And he's a pretty great kid, this North. His name is North. And because his parents don't appreciate him, he sues them, and he gets permission to go and find new parents. And he has a limited time to do this, or else he'll be sent to an orphanage. Now, this film is famous for being Roger Ebert, the late film critic's, one of his most hated films. In fact, this was where he said the phrase, I hated this movie, which became a little bit of a meme, I suppose. And some other little bits of trivia about North, if you can't be bothered going to their IMDb page, I'll do it for you. That's how dedicated I am to this. It featured the lone film appearance of Bryn Hartman, who's the wife of Phil Hartman, who ended up murdering him. It's a bit dark. So she plays a waitress in this film. So, wow, man, look out for that one. You want to tip that waitress. I tell ya, haha, because, she shoots people. So although our job is to keep an eye out for the first on-screen appearance of a young Miss Scarlett Johansson, I want to really document the plot of North. And hopefully, we won't be waiting too long. Hopefully she'll turn up really soon and we can get into the meat of what this podcast is about. But I'm hoping that you'll have the same North experience as I did as we sort of journey along and kind of along the way find out why North didn't work, why it was so hated. I mean, this is a movie that opens with North, played by Elijah Wood, having an actual, literal heart attack, clutching his chest, screaming, at one point falling on the floor, while his completely obnoxious asshole parents, played by Seinfeld's Jason Alexander, better known as George Costanza, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, as we know as Elaine Bennis, I think it's Bennis, are arguing with each other and talking about their ridiculous lives and ignoring the child who is having a heart attack because of the fact that they are such assholes. And I mean, this so aggressively alienates the audience that you even have Jason Alexander saying the line very casually, "Saw some blood in my stool this morning," which is, I think, what actually makes North fall out of the chair. And there's a very heightened reality here. I mean, this is something that I think would work a lot better in the story. And I certainly haven't read the original story of North, but I get the feeling that it's not so much the fault of the story itself that this is a failure, but more that director Rob Reiner just isn't really up to the task. And he's somebody that's got a pretty impressive resume. I mean, this is a guy that did The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, this is Spinal Tap. But it just doesn't come together here, and I think he doesn't have that sort of sensibility, that sort of fantastical world that he needed to create around these characters in order to get away with just how broad and bizarre they are. I would almost rather see somebody like a Luc Besson direct this thing, someone that could inject a huge amount of design around these characters. You would instantly look at them and get the sense of their story. Even like a Wes Anderson. I mean, you look at what he did with Fantastic Mr. Fox, and there is a sort of Roald Dahl kind of dark, quirky element within the story of North. And I just don't think Rob Reiner's sensibility really understands that. Everything is really quite straightforward and ugly, and it misses that whimsy. Even an Alfonso Cuarón, you know what I mean? Like, that would work. I think he could even maybe salvage this thing. Because, Jason Alexander and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, which, by the way, is the most 90s casting you could ever think of at this point. I mean, Seinfeld was huge. That's like casting Michael Jordan and Shannon Doherty as his aunt and uncle. Very 90s. I mean, they're actually an interesting part of the movie. I mean, Jason Alexander plays a pants inspector. He refers to himself as winning the Mr. Inseam Award. And when we see him at his job later, he actually creates these pants testing simulations. So he's like wearing a powder blue tux, and he's testing the pants in a faux party environment that's created in his office. And I think that, for example, is a really fun idea. It's silly, but it's interesting. And I think, you just need the person with the right sensibility. Even like a Spike Jonze or somebody, or a Charlie Kaufman. Just Charlie Kaufman writes the stuff. But you know what I mean? Like, just someone with a little bit of quirky indie sensibility might have been able to switch this around. Anyway, the real problem is that North is not a very easy character to relate to, because he's set up as the perfect child that everybody loves, but Elijah Wood never really has the opportunity to develop a character that everybody loves. We're just told that we should love him and that everybody except his parents appreciate him. But we don't really know why he's so special. We get a little montage, which is amusing. We see him with a fake beard singing "If I Was a Rich Man," that's the one. Which is funny, but he still looks like a bit of a knob. And Elijah Wood, unfortunately, always looks like a little bit of a knob. So it's hard to accept the central premise of this book. Anyway, North realizes he's not appreciated, so he heads off to a thinking spot. Winnie the Pooh had a thinking spot. That's a classic trope. North is in a big leather armchair in a department store, and it's there that he meets Bruce Willis. And this is the image that I think people most remember from North, is Bruce Willis is actually wearing a pink rabbit costume. He's supposedly the Easter Bunny and he's on his break. And it's him that sort of asks about, what are you thinking about? What's going on? It's him that kind of seeds this idea of North bailing on his parents and finding new ones that are going to appreciate him. Now, Bruce Willis has never really looked like he's wanted to be in the movie that he's in, and that is certainly the case here with North. I mean, if you think Bugs Bunny is a sardonic rabbit who doesn't give a fuck, then really, wait until you see this guy. And I'm also shocked that there's no stranger danger alarms going off in North's head here. I would suggest that if you have young children that you're responsible for, that you should make it very clear to them that if a man in a pink rabbit costume tries to wrest you away from your family, that you really need to tell somebody that you trust and not go along with his plans. Maybe wear a whistle or something like that for when this kind of thing happens. But anyway, look, North's got the idea, and it's strengthened by his friend, who's this hideous, precocious child journalist called Winchell. And Winchell, who sort of develops into the villain of the piece, kind of looks like Macaulay Culkin crossed with an actual beaver. And he encourages North to go and breaks the news via his hand-printed pamphlet that North's going to bust out of town and try and find new parents. And this leads North to be forcibly teamed up with a very sleazy lawyer character played by John Lovitz, who is basically acting like he's doing a Simpsons character, but not his Simpsons character. Probably more like Phil Hartman's sleazy Lionel Hutz character. Just to see how subtle this film is, he actually opens with him chasing an ambulance. That's how we're introduced to this character, because kids love lawyer jokes, am I right? And it goes to trial. Alan Arkin plays a very wacky judge who immediately and arbitrarily rules in favour of North, freeing him up to find better parents. But the whole catch is, if he's not in the arms of his new parents or old original parents by Labor Day, which is only a few weeks away, he'll be put into an orphanage for some bizarre, unexplained reason. I don't know why these particular hoops exist for North, other than this judge gives even less of a shit than Bruce Willis. But at least Alan Arkin's playing a wacky, over-the-top character. And it's amazing the calibre of actors that are actually in this film. I think it's just because, they only had to work a day or two each. So I guess they just went for it. And, like I said, Rob Reiner, great track record. Who knew? So that's the crux. That's the setup. North is now going to travel around the country and meet prospective new parents and see if it all works out. And that's really the problem here, because North is all dressed up with nowhere to go, because once you've gotten through that setup, none of the actual meetings with the parents are really interesting or engaging enough to justify this film's existence. Even when they've got celebrity cameos in all these roles. The first family is in Texas, and it's a very audacious Ma and Pa Tex, played by Dan Aykroyd and Reba McEntire. And they've got this massive, massive limo, and they all dress like crazy RuPaul cowboys, even Elijah Wood in these scenes. Lots of fringing, lots of sequins. And for some reason, even Bruce Willis is on the ranch as well, now dressed as a cowboy. So we're beginning to realise that he's kind of not only the narrator, but almost like a Jiminy Cricket-esque conscience for North, who is, giving him this idea that, hey, maybe these parents, maybe, being the centre of attention is not so cool. Maybe these guys are all going to treat you badly as well, and maybe original parents aren't so bad. So, we basically understand the whole moral of the film within the first 20 minutes or so, and yet we have to go through the motions. And I feel like Rob Reiner and the cast are also going through the motions. I'm going through the motions right now with you because I would like nothing more than to start talking about Scarlett Johansson. Is she in Texas with Ma and Pa Tex? Is Dan Aykroyd gonna pop out a little Scarlett Johansson, hold her up in his arms like Simba in The Lion King? No, unfortunately no, she's not in this sequence. Instead, it's, and this is that dark Roald Dahl thing coming in. They've decided that everything is bigger and better in Texas. Therefore, North, he's already the best. They want to make him the biggest. So their plan is they're going to fatten him up. Just make him a beast so he is the biggest child in Texas. Now, apparently they did this to a previous child who died. But even then, Rob Reiner doesn't, go in there and exploit that. I wanted to see a photo of this ridiculous fat child. I wanted him to tell this story and then point to the wall and see this big painting of this ridiculous fat child. An idea that we had this comical image in our head where we could go, oh, that's what's going to happen to North. Or even better, what about a statue? What about a statue of this giant fat boy that North could look at and just think, holy shit, this is crazy. But no, it's just a conversation at a dinner table, and North's suspicious about the amount of food, but it's not a crazy amount of food. It's a massive long table, and they've each just got a plate of food in front of them. This was the perfect opportunity for crazy food porn. I mean, so many children's stories, whether it's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or even the Harry Potter films, are all about food porn. I mean, that's something that kids can relate to. That's where a lot of their desires stem from, especially in American books. Not pointing fingers, but hey, everything is big and better in Texas. I learnt that from watching North. So, it turns out the table is empty because there's a musical number. And you would think, again, this could be one of those Food Glorious Food, hot sausage mustard, all that kind of cool stuff. Instead, no, it's just cowboys. Cowboys, cowgirls in white sequined outfits jump around and, they're singing about North eating, but it should have been people trying to nightmarishly shove food into his face. Doesn't happen. North goes fuck this, and he leaves. So, this is the pattern here. The next wildly inappropriate family is in Hawaii. Also, stereotypes, lays, volcanoes, grass huts, etc. And the problem in this one turns out that because North's so great, they want to turn him into a tourist attraction. And they put up a big billboard, which is a parody of that ad, where the dog pulls down the bathing suit at the back, except it's North. And it looks like North. It's a painting of a realistic young child, Elijah Wood, getting the back of his pants pulled down by some sort of mechanical octopus on the billboard. So this octopus keeps pulling his pants down and exposing his little painted buttocks. And this is bizarre, and it leads to this scene where North says the phrase, my crack, at least 35 times. He keeps saying, do you have to show everyone my crack? Why is my crack on display? Hey, why does everybody want to get all up in my crack? That's my crack, you guys. Really, really strange. And also I think perhaps the first film aimed at children to feature tentacle rape. Though, I gotta say, he does also say my most private crevice is another phrase, which that one I quite like. I think that has a nice ring to it, kind of like my own private Idaho. Sounds like there's a larger story there. Anyway, Bruce Willis turns up again. He's now on the beach. He's a beachcomber with a metal detector. And, again, he's sort of going, oh, these parents, everyone's not so great, etc., playing the conscience, basically leading North to the third act where he will reunite with his parents, which we already know. I mean, this film is so repetitive. It's like that children's book, Are You My Mother? The one with the bird, and the bird's walking around and the bird first goes to a dog, and the bird's like, are you my mother? And the dog's like, no, I'm a dog. And then the bird's like, are you my mother? To a cow, and the cow's like, no, I'm a cow. And already your kid, even if you don't have a particularly literate, particularly smart kid, if your kid's seen TV, has seen anything, your kid's going the fucking, the other bird is your mother. That's your mother. You're a bird. You are a bird, North. Bird is your mother. God, this story, it's only broken up. This repetitiveness is only broken up by these really bizarre scenes with John Lovitz, the lawyer, and Winchell, the beaver-faced boy, who I swear to God are having cocktails and getting a couples massage by these two hot blondes, neither of which are Scarlett Johansson. Where's Scarlett? Maybe she's in Alaska. No, Alaska, husky sleds, igloos, Kathy Bates. Although the problem here is that old people, when they get old, they send them off onto the ice and die. Again, Rob Reiner drops the ball. Abe Vigoda is the grandfather that's getting sent out onto the ice. Imagine a beautiful scene with Aurora Borealis maybe, even something like that, or just stars, beautiful stars, inky sea. this lone, sad grandfather floating out into the ocean, looking back, going, if you change your mind, then let me know. But no, it looks like it was on a soundstage. It looked like it cost $10. It looks like everybody just brought in the scrapings from their freezers. Like Rob Reiner said, everybody, look, it's a snow scene. Go into your freezer tonight, scrape out the ice, put it in a pickle bucket. Americans eat a lot of pickles. They usually have a bucket handy nearby, and bring it in, and we'll just cover the set, and we'll just do this in a few, as quick as we can. Let's do it in a day. We've only got Abe Vigoda for a day because he is actually going to be sent off into a remote area to die because, Abe Vigoda is very old, and lawyers chase ambulances. Anyway, North says, fuck this shit. I don't have to put up with this shit. I'm fucking North. I'm out of here. Then it's an Amish family. He doesn't want that. He likes technology. We never see him use technology, but apparently he really likes it. There's a Chinese family who all bow to him like an emperor. Like he's out sitting there like he's the last emperor kid from that film about the last emperor, conveniently titled The Last Emperor. Everybody's bowing, etc. But then they show him that they're going to give him a goofy haircut. He's going to be bald with just one of those like pigtail kind of Padawan things, and he doesn't want to do that, so that's no good. Then there's African tribesmen. This scene's like really kind of weirdly stereotypical and offensive. It's got he swings in on a vine. There's all these African people wearing loincloths and stuff and walking hand in hand with chimpanzees, and then the woman that shows up to his new mother like leans in. She's topless, we can't see, but North is just getting an eyeful of dem titties, and that ass, like she's wearing like virtually nothing at the back, and her I believe they say booty, is that correct, is in the camera. It's like shaking in the camera. You can't really see it shaking because they've probably used a steady cam because they knew it was going to be shaking, and North is just staring at her breasts, and he's like, I'm not going to get much homework done. Then it's Paris. We're talking berets, cigarettes. Jerry Lewis is on every channel because, lawyers chase ambulances and French people watch Jerry Lewis. And then finally, North has 3 days to go. The pressure is on. He's got to get a new family. So he goes to New York and he meets the perfect family. There is Ward and Donna Nelson. Ward is played by the late, great John Ritter. Donna Nelson is Faith Ford. And they're two perfect children, Bud and Laura Nelson. Holy crap. Laura Nelson, the perfect daughter in the perfect family. Could it possibly be? Brace yourself, dear listener, because 55 minutes into the film, a tiny blonde girl, she's not a girl, she's a girl. She's not a dwarf, she's a girl, by an English sheepdog. She's not a dog, she's a girl. Runs onto the screen. And this, my friends, Laura Nelson, is the proto Scarlett Johansson. This, my friends, is the tiny acorn that will one day grow into a powerful, dependable oak. I mean, this little girl is probably still playing with dolls and ironically does not know that one day she herself will be made into a doll. Many dolls on the shelves of a 38-year-old Australian and on a lot of shelves around the world. This little acorn that is bobbing onto the screen does not know that she will go on to record albums, that she will appear on the cover of many, many magazines, that she will work with some of the most amazing directors in the world. And I was shocked because this little, I don't know how old a 12-year-old is, or like a 10-year-old is, or a 9-year-old. I don't know what they look like. They all look the same to me. I'm thinking okay, she's 10, she's going to look like she's 18. No, she looks like she's about 5 years old. She's tiny. This is a tiny child that runs onto the screen. long hair tied in a ponytail with a pink bow. She's wearing like a pink gingham dress, and she is just grinning and gurning and skipping unevenly around the lawn like she's been secretly swigging cooking sherry. This is a hyped up little girl that kind of dances around, is not completely aware of her own body and how it works. She's got that awkward kind of skipping, walking, dancing thing. And most of all, the best thing is, she just looks really happy to be there. Her first line is, "Mom and I baked you some chocolate chip cookies," which is not delivered with the confidence of a precocious actor. Like, this isn't a child that wants to fill up the screen with their sickeningly grinning countenance. This isn't a child that's been through beauty pageants and been forced to perform like some kind of aforementioned chimpanzee. You know, this is just a real, genuine little kid who goes like, "Mom and I baked you some cookies." You know, it's adorable. And this is not the husky voice that we fell in love with from her. This is the squeaky, broken voice of a child. And clearly before Scarlett's own voice broke. You know, it's just an adorable little child being a child. And then, of course, it's all spoiled because we break away to a scene with Lovitz and Beaver Boy. Although it is cool because during this scene, while Lovitz is doing his dialogue, he is casually playing a Terminator 2 Judgment Day arcade machine. Do you remember those? They were the ones with the actual gun and you would like shoot at all the enemies that came on the screen. I like to think that, you know, Judgment Day, this is how he learned about the justice system. This is what qualifies this lawyer to be in a courtroom and to be present at Judgment Days, because he played the game. But back to the adorable Nelson family. Now she's in overalls, and young Scarlett plays football in the yard. And when I say play football, she mostly runs around like she's drunk and gets nowhere near the ball. You know, she would be better off in a film like The Room with these football skills. Really, the guys are going at it and she's just sort of running back and forth, chasing the ball. You know, this, like I said, it's not a seasoned actor. It's not someone who's been carefully choreographed in this scene. This is a child who is still in a raw animal state. You know, when you look and you think you are more puppy than person. In fact, I'm not 100% sure that she even knows she's in a movie at this point. I think she's just having a great time. And in a second line, she's sitting with the family at a picnic table. They're outside, everything's perfect, and she just throws her head around like a bobblehead in an earthquake, never really focusing on anything. And she goes, "Yeah, now I have 2 big brothers to look after me." So there's no real character here. It's not like I was going, oh, she might be a mean girl, or she might be a snobby kid, or she might be a adorable love interest or whatever. No, she's just a kid having fun. There's no character at all. She's just there to be the perfect daughter in the perfect family. Her third line is, "Yeah, we really want you." And this is interesting. This is why I think this podcast is worth doing. Because these are the things that slip through the cracks, the little details, because we're not required to watch the young Scarlett Johansson in this scene because she wasn't anybody, she was just a kid. But when you start to study and focus on the characters in the background, or in the foreground, she's in the foreground in this scene, but she's got her back to us, you begin to see things that you would never normally see. And we have to be pretty smart about this. We need to be, as students of Scarlett Johansson, we have to capture all these things and kind of figure out what they mean. Now, she's got no real meal in front of her. I don't know what she's supposed to be eating. But there is a big, bright yellow bottle of mustard, which she sort of picks up while the other characters are talking, and she squeezes it. But of course, she's got nothing to put it on. So she puts it back on the table. And the thing about it is, it's all bent up, like she's been squeezing it all day while they've been shooting. Like, this is the proto-actor absolutely giving it her all. Like, she's really laying into this mustard. And I think it's because, I mean, I doubt the props department brought in a dented bottle of mustard. I think this is all the young Scarlett just fascinated by this mustard. And then this is where the plot thickens. This is the sort of stuff that's starting to blow my mind already in episode 1. I didn't realise just how deep into the Matrix we were going to go with this. But the next scene, the family are in the midst of playing a board game. They're all sitting around a table playing a board game, and we learn that she's not just a pretty face, she's also incredibly smart. And I say this because the young Scarlett Johansson, no more than 9 years old, instantly solves a murder. So she says, "Colonel Mustard in the study with the rope?" And she's right, she's got it, she solved it. They're playing Clue, or Cluedo as we call it here in Australia. She's playing Clue, and she picks instantly that it's Colonel Mustard. Now, are you picking up what I'm putting down here? Colonel Mustard. What was she doing at the picnic table? We thought it was kind of random. Why is she squeezing this bottle of mustard? Why is she putting a dent in it? It's because she already knew. She knew that mustard was in some way implicated in not just a murder, but a future murder. So she's kind of like a psychic detective. Have you seen Minority Report? Because I wonder if this is basically where they got the idea for that book/film. Because she's looking at the mustard and she just doesn't trust it. She's squeezing it. She's having like this total red rum shining moment where she's squeezing this mustard, like giving it her all, and everybody's like, oh, it's just a kid playing. And later on, "I got your killer. It's Colonel Mustard. Came to me in a vision." So that is very cool. And John Ritter, so impressed by this. He calls her kitten. So, she must be one of those Ritter kittens that we've heard about. I like that. Ritter kitten. Hard to say. Hard to say in an Australian accent where I tend to drop my T's and make them D's. Like, "Oh, I have a glass of water, mate. Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah? Oh, I reckon the book was better." But Ritter kitten. Or Ritter kitten, if you prefer. Okay, now, her sixth line, "Night, Mom! Night, Dad!" is way too loud. Like, she's right next to them. She doesn't need to yell at them, but she's a kid. She has no boundaries. Rob Reiner, he's not going to rein her in. He's going to let her do whatever she wants because she's an adorable little blonde moppet, and he's like, "If you want to yell, 'Good night, Mom, good night, Dad,' that's fine with me, little Scarlett. You just do whatever you want." Maybe he thinks this is a one and only film, so you may as well enjoy it. Maybe he thinks like, "Yeah, it's a cute kid, but, she's going to become like this A-list movie star, right? She's going to have like a 20-year career and like earn the studios $2 billion. Well, eggs on your face now, Rob Reiner. But at the moment, just lets her go. So she goes off to bed, and it's basically so that the adults can deal with North and deal with the plot. Which is they receive a video apology from North's real parents, but it turns out it's been edited by the beaver face boy so that they look like even bigger assholes than they previously looked like. And let's be honest, they look like pretty massive assholes. New scene. They go into the carnival. That's what perfect families do. They have fun at the carnival. Now she's wearing pink overalls, running around, all fueled up on the pink cotton candy that was probably her payment for doing the film, is this pink cotton candy. We don't say cotton candy in Australia. This is just a little bit of trivia for any American listeners. We say fairy floss. Now, my partner Suzanne once wrote a comic for an American illustrator, and she set it in a fairground or a circus or something, I can't remember, and she wrote that the person was eating fairy floss. So he drew just these little bits of strings, like I guess that strings that fairies hypothetically might floss their teeth with. Isn't that funny? Obviously Google was down for America at that point, but there you go. Cotton candy, whatever you prefer. I'm easy. Some people say Johansson, some people say Johansson. Fine with me. Just don't say Scarjo unless it's in the theme song, because that's really cool. Lizzy Unpronounceable, our good friend Lizzy Unpronounceable, did the theme song. Put that together with my lyrics. So there you go. Isn't that amazing? I love you, Lizzy. Thank you. Yes. Now, this is more serious business. This is one of those other behind-the-scenes things, well, like in the background things that we're not expected to focus on. They get into a little train at the carnival. Everybody else is acting. Like, Ritter's sitting up the front with North, and the kid, the little boy kid, and little baby Scarlett are sitting in the back. And they're all just holding their cotton candy like the props that they are. Whereas she's, like, licking it off her hands in the background. And then later on, she, like, seems to be, like, yelling incoherently at the ceiling, but they've kind of, like, turned her mic down so that Ritter and Elijah can be talking in the front. But like I said, she doesn't act like she's in a film. She just looks like she's having a really great day at the carnival, and that she's having a genuine conversation with this kid, and, like, genuinely eating this cotton candy off her hand. And it's just a bonus that the cameras are rolling. But just as we're getting started, just as we're really enjoying this acorn of a performance, North decides to leave. He needs some alone time. He needs to figure this out. He needs to figure out which family he's going to be with. Even though this is the perfect family, carnival-going family, Cluedo-playing family. So the family farewell him at a real train this time, not a little carnival train. And we're going to miss you too, says Mom, and the dog barks. And so will Oliver, says young Scarlett, feigning sadness. And this is interesting because this is actually the most acting that is required from her in this film. This is where she actually has to be sad. So the bottom lip's protruding. She's kind of looking down at the ground a bit. She's sad to see North go. So this is her very first emotion on screen. And she's no longer in pink, by the way, but she's wearing blue because clearly she's blue because North is leaving. So as North leaves, the little proto Scarlett Johansson sadly waves goodbye on the platform as the late John Ritter lays a comforting hand on the shoulder of his little Ritter kitten. And, in many ways, as the train pulls away and she fades off into the distance, this really could have been the end of her career. That could have been it. We could have been literally waving goodbye to young Scarlett Johansson. This could have been the end of a line. Is it the end of the line? No. Not by a long shot. This, my friends, is just the beginning of a long and strange and intimate journey. And what of North? What happens to him? Well, it doesn't really matter, does it? I mean, there's like half an hour of the movie left, but we were here. The show's called Scarjo A Go-Go, not Frodo A Go-Go. So, look, he gets back with his parents. You knew that was going to happen, right? They all make amends. I've got to say, Julia Louis-Dreyfus is wearing a bob wig with a straight fringe. We say fringe in Australia because it's like a fringe. In America, you guys say bangs for God knows why. Our Google is down at the moment, otherwise I'd try and find a logical explanation for that. But North is all happy and the credits roll, and Scarlett Johansson's name is incorrectly spelled in the credits, with an E instead of an O towards the end. Not the son of Johan, but the sen of Johan. And I think that's a sin on behalf of Rob Reiner and his team. They obviously didn't care enough to check that one out. As I said, they just put a cute kid in a movie, let the cute kid be a cute kid, and didn't realise what the future held. So, that was 1994's North. Gotta ask the question, why was she cast? Why do we think she was cast then? Child actors generally are quite precocious. I mean, they're usually adults in children's bodies, like Gary Oldman or Tom Cruise. And they often grow up to have very difficult lives. They don't often achieve success as adults. Elijah Wood, he did okay. He became Hobbit. And he was a serial killer in Sin City. He's in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. But he's not an A-list actor, and he doesn't show up in 4 movies a year. Unlike little Laura Nelson here, little Ritter kitten, she did. So, she didn't have that child actor path here. I really just think, she was the perfect blonde hair, blue eyes daughter for this nuclear family. Does she have blue eyes? You'd think I should know that. I think maybe they're kind of a greeny colour. I think they're green eyes. Perfect blonde hair, green-eyed daughter in this perfect nuclear family. I don't know why John Ritter would be a perfect father, but because I've seen Problem Child, and I don't know about his. No, actually, he was kind of nice in that. We digress. But yeah, just cast a kid. So the question is, what happens next? What does this mean for the future? Because the thing is, in 1995, she was cast in another film. So what did they see in her? That was it the same deal as North, or was it something new? Was she asked to do more? I guess we'll have to wait and see. I haven't even seen the film yet. But in summary, I think each episode we should add something to our Scarcabulary. A new word, a new phrase, something that comes out of the show. For this episode 1, our very first episode, Ritter Kitten. Our little Ritter Kitten. There's something that we can use. And I would like to summarise each film by just reminding you, the listener, of her 3 greatest feats in each film. We've got to decide, what are the 3 things that she really accomplished? If we're going to remember her performance in this film, what did she do? So, number 1, she had her first on-screen emotion. She was sad. She was sad to see North go. Number 2, she ate one of the props. Number 3, and this is, for me, is the most impressive of all of them. I should have counted down 3, 2, 1, because this is the number 1 greatest feat. She psychically solved a murder. Next up is 1995's Just Cause, the film starring Sean Connery and Lawrence Fishburne. I've never seen it. It's a kind of courtroom drama, thriller thing. Not the sort of movie I normally watch, but I'll be very interested to see how she slots into that one. So, that, my friends, is Scarjo A Go-Go. This is the acorn that I hope, with your support, and that will evolve and will become a mighty tree, because there's some really great films coming up, and I hope that as she gets better, I'll get better, and you'll be better for hearing it. Thanks for listening. Please, Fruitless Pursuits. This is a Fruitless Pursuits production, so come and like our Fruitless Pursuits page. Come and join the discussions thread that will be in our group for the Book Was Better podcast, which is another podcast I do. That's become just a general podcast discussion thread. So whether you listen to our general pop culture podcast, FPcast, or you listen to The Book Was Better, or you just listen to Scarjo A Go-Go, come and say hello, and I'll say hello back. Thank you for watering my acorn. That sounds weird.
She starts off really small and then she grows, she grows, she grows, she grows. Let's see how far she goes. Scarjo A Go-Go.